Okay, we'd like to call to order the June 8th, 2020 regular meeting of the Plymouth Township Council. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Hang on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just a quick announcement that a public hearing and meeting was held for 2622 Butler Pike at 6:00 p.m. Is there any public comment on any items currently listed on the agenda? And just a reminder that when we get to, at any point tonight for public comment, if you go to your name under the participants list, you'll see that there's a raise hand button on the bottom, and you can click the raise hand button and it will show us that you have a question. So Brandon is moderating our meeting tonight. So by clicking on participants on the bottom of the screen, that will show your name, and you can click the raise hand button when we get to any comments or questions that you have throughout the meeting. And Brandon will let us know if we have any. Also a reminder for any public comment, just a reminder to state your name and your address for us so that we have that for the record. Okay, our first item on the agenda is a 20 years of service resolution for Michael Frank, and that one is going to go to Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I read the resolution, I wanted to say that Mike Frank, if you're out there, I remember when you coached my son in Little League. I don't know if it was one of them or both of them. It was a pretty long time ago, but I know one. And you were a great coach, and you're an even better township employee. So thank you, and let me read the resolution. Whereas Michael Frank has served the Plymouth Township Public Works Department faithfully since June 12, 2000, and has therefore completed 20 years of service. And whereas Plymouth Township Council desires to formally recognize the diligent and valuable service rendered by Michael Frank and publicly express its appreciation. Now therefore be it resolved that Michael Frank is congratulated for completion of 20 years of service with the Plymouth Township Public Works Department. And be it further resolved that this resolution be entered into the official minutes of Plymouth Township, and that a copy of this resolution be publicly tendered to Michael Frank, adopted this 8th day of June, Plymouth Township Council by Chris Pinero. I make a motion to approve this resolution.
Okay, a motion from Mr. Higgins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Bramlett. Any comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
Mr. Gannon?
In favor.
Ms. Bandish?
In favor.
Ms. Bramlett?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. And congratulations and thank you, Mr. Frank, for all of your years of service. Okay, an announcement that an executive session was held on June 1st, 2020. Moving down to approval of minutes, approval of the workshop meeting minutes from May 4th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Gannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Higgins. Comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Bramlett?
In favor.
Ms. Bandish?
In favor.
Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
Mr. Gannon?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Approval of minutes, regular meeting held May 11th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Bandish. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Bramlett. Comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Gannon?
In favor?
Ms. Bandish,
In favor.
Ms. Bramblett,
In favor.
Mr. Higgins,
In favor.
and the chair votes in favor. Approval of departmental reports and bills. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Higgins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gannon. Comments or questions from council? And comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Bandish,
In favor.
Ms. Bramblett,
In favor.
Mr. Higgins,
In favor.
Mr. Gannon,
In favor?
and the chair votes in favor. Moving down to administration, we have a tax appeal stipulation to settle, and that one is going to go to Mr.
Brandon, can you unmute Mike? Clark.
Yeah, 1 second. All right.
Thank you. Mr. Monero, we have a tax assessment appeal settlement stipulation for the board's consideration this evening. This is in the matter of Colonial School District versus Partners Preferred Yield, Inc. Partners Preferred Yield, Inc. is the taxpayer, and they are the owner of the property at 2025 on Chemical Road in Plymouth Township. In 2015, the Colonial School District filed an appeal to the Montgomery County Board of Assessment seeking an increase in the assessment of the property for the 2016 tax year. At the time, the property was assessed at $1,176,360. We joined in the appeal, and the parties have reached an agreement for a change on the tax assessment amount for your consideration this evening. Effective January 1st, 2016 for county and township tax purposes, and July 1st, 2016 for school district tax purposes, the assessment on the subject property shall increase to $2,978,600. For effective January 1st, 2017 for county and township tax purposes, and July 1st, 2017 for school district purposes, the assessment on the subject property shall increase to $3,366,000. Effective January 1st, 2018 for county and township tax purposes, and July 1st, 2018 for school district tax purposes, the assessment on the subject property shall increase to $3,678,800. Effective January 1st, 2019 for the county and township tax purposes, and July 1st, 2019 for school district purposes, the amount shall be increased to $3,690,250. And effective January 1st, 2020 for the county and the township, and July 1st, 2020 for the school district, it shall be, shall actually be decreased to $3,585,590. The assessment shall remain at that amount for each subsequent tax year until another subsequent appeal is filed and is successful. For our purposes, as a result in the increase in the assessment on the subject property, there was an underpayment in taxes to Plymouth Township for tax years 2016 through 2020 in the amount of $24,506.64. So if the board were to approve this evening, we would be getting approximately $25,000 in back taxes, and then the assessment would be increased to the amount that I had mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Is there a motion to approve this tax settlement?
So moved.
Motion from Mr. Higgins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gannon, I believe. Any comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Bramlett?
In favor.
Ms. Bandish?
In favor.
Mr. Gannon?
In favor.
Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Next item under administration is a ratification of an outdoor sales of food and merchandise resolution. And this is, obviously as we are transitioning our lives here, moving into the yellow phase, and the allowance now of restaurants to serve and have outdoor dining. We have several restaurants in the township that we feel as though maybe taking the opportunity to do this. So we needed to just sort of clean up and clarify a few things for safety purposes. And that is the reason for this ordinance, this resolution rather. And I would hand this over to Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Monero. You are correct that with the county moving into the yellow on Friday, outdoor dining and outdoor retail sales are now permitted. The governor's, when he issued the proclamation of the disaster emergency on May 6th, it forbid anyone in the red from restaurants from operating. So this moving into the yellow allows for outdoor dining, and we needed to create essentially a procedure by which anyone who wished to conduct outdoor dining would be able to do so consistent with the governor's orders and consistent with the codes of Plymouth Township. As you indicated, this is a ratification vote because this issue came up last week. We moved into the yellow on Friday, and we are meeting tonight. So when we sent around the resolution and we sent around the application, we asked the board to indicate whether or not they were in favor of this resolution. The board did, and so we are ratifying that approval. So this resolution has in effect, or has been in effect, in the township since Friday. This resolution will last for 90 days, and it will expire at the end of 90 days unless the board decides to extend it. This is for any merchant in the township who wants to conduct commercial activity outside of their normal business and wants to go into either a courtyard or a parking lot. One of the things that this resolution does is it puts the responsibility of making sure that the business is complying with the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, the Pennsylvania Department of Health, the Montgomery County Department of Health, with their insurance carrier, with their landlord, on the business owner. So all we are doing is we are relaxing or permitting this outdoor dining, and perhaps relaxing some of our ordinances and some of our approval process in order to expedite this and allow restaurants to operate outside. So.
Okay.
And two other issues. One, if you're in violation of this, we can revoke this permission, and there are no vested rights will be created by adopting this resolution. So a business who has outdoor dining for the next 90 days can't come back to us at the 91st day and says, well, say, I've been doing it for the last 90 days, I should be able to do it forever. There's still going to be a regular approval process.
Thank you for that. So I guess this is a motion to ratify the resolution. Is that correct?
Correct. Previously approved.
Yeah. So is there a motion from council to ratify this previously approved resolution?
So move.
Motion from Mr. Higgins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Bandish. Any comments or questions from council? Any comments or questions from the audience? Okay. Seeing none, we will do a roll call vote. Mr. Gannon?
In favor.
Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
Ms. Bandish?
In favor.
Ms. Bramlett?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Going down to police and public safety. Chief, anything to add?
He's unmuted. Can you hear me?
Now we
Yes.
can.
All right. Sorry about that.
I just wanted to let council know that throughout the week, we've continued our ongoing communication with NAACP leadership. We've built a strong partnership with them, and we continue to find ways to better serve the community. The president of the NAACP had invited me to speak in Norristown at a peaceful protest and prayer service. I took along my entire command staff to express our support. That went very well, and he actually had a lot of nice words to say about Plymouth to the people that were in attendance. From there, we had a protest in Plymouth Township where we worked hand in hand with the organizers to ensure a safe venue for the community to express their concerns. And that also went very well. We anticipate one or two more protests, at least in the near future this week, because we've worked well with the organizers. They talked to us beforehand, and we make sure that we do it in concert so that it keeps the neighborhood safe and that they have the freedom to express themselves also. But things have gone well all around.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Anything else from council on that? Moving on to Public Works and Sewer, we have a highway permit fee resolution, and that one is going to Ms. Bandish.
Yes, the resolution. Be it resolved, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that Plymouth Township Council does hereby amend and adopt the following township highway permit fees under Section 20-37 of the Plymouth Township Code. 1, for openings or excavations within any township highway, road, street, avenue, or public alley right-of-way having an improved surface, an area of less than 50 square feet, $125 per opening. Over 50 square feet, $250 per opening. 2, for openings or breaks in improved sidewalks, aprons, curbs, stormwater structures, or grass right-of-way, a fee of $25. 3, for setting or replacing utility poles or anchors, a fee of $25 per pole. 3, for trenches of less than 50 linear feet, a fee of $200. 5, for trenches 50 linear feet or greater, a fee of $300 plus $1 for each additional foot over 50 feet. This is duly presented and adopted by the Plymouth Township Council at a public meeting held on the 8th day of June by Mr. Monero.
Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Motion for Mr. Higgins, second.
Second.
Second from Ms. Bramlett. Any comments or questions from council? And if I could just ask, because I think Chris Lasciavo is here, this just brings us up to where other municipalities are in terms of these fees. Is that correct?
It does, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't affect any households that wish to and desire to put sidewalks in and aprons and the like. That remains the same. It's really for the utility companies. We haven't changed since 2005. So we are in line.
Great, thank you. Any comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Bramlett?
In favor.
Mr. Gannon?
In favor.
Ms. Bandish?
In favor.
Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Next item is the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation Winter Services Agreement and Resolution revised, and that goes to Mr. Gannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the latest version of this resolution that between Plymouth Township and PennDOT for the roads that are owned by PennDOT that we clear the ice and snow and salt for reimbursement for the township, and this verify the actual mileage and the roads that we take care of for PennDOT. So the resolution is, be it resolved by authority of the council of the Plymouth Township, Montgomery County, and it is hereby resolved by authority of the same that the chairman of said municipality be authorized and directed to sign the attached agreement on its behalf.
Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I make a motion we approve this resolution.
Motion from Mr. Gannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Bandish. And again, just to clarify, this is actually a revised version of the resolution that we had previously passed that updated some of these numbers. Any comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Gannon?
In favor.
Ms. Bandish?
In favor.
Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
Ms. Bramblett?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Nothing else for Public Works? Moving down to engineering. Mr. Manai, anything for under engineering tonight?
He's unmuted.
There's nothing to report on their engineering tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I thought I read the lips there. Thought I got that out. Moving down to subdivision and land development plans that are currently under review. First one is SMG Hotels at 201 Plymouth Road. Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a letter from Craig Lewis representing land development application of 201 Plymouth Road. They are requesting an extension to August 30th, 2020. I make a motion to approve the extension.
Motion from Mr. Higgins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gannon. Comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Bandish?
In favor.
Mr. Gannon?
In favor.
Ms. Bramblett?
In favor.
Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Moving down to Plymouth Square Shopping Center. This is Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Monero. Be it resolved that Plymouth Township Council has hereby approved the preliminary final land development plan titled Plymouth Square Shopping Center, prepared for Brixmore, Plymouth Square as the owner and developer, prepared by Langen Engineering, dated February 3rd, 2020, last revised May 8th, 2020, consisting of sheets numbers 1 through 31, proposing to redevelop a tract of land with frontage on Ridge and Butler Pike, having a parcel number of 49-00-10021-00-1, land development application number 20-1, to construct parking improvements, demolish the upper level of an existing building, and to make other improvements, including construction of a plaza and a patio area in accordance with said plans, under and subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner developer shall execute a public improvement agreement and memorandum of public improvement agreement as required by the subdivision and land development ordinance, and pay all applicable fees and assessments, including but not limited to the following. A, an impact fee for transportation capital improvements under ordinance number 1426 of 2004 as amended, said impact fee to be determined by Carroll Engineering Corporation. B, a sewer connection fee in accordance with the connection fee and EDU schedule in effect at the time of application for connection and payment. 2, that the owner developer shall prepare revised plans as set forth in the June 3rd, 2020 report of McCloskey and Faber, the township landscape architect, attached to this resolution, except to the extent that waivers are granted herein to the satisfaction and approval of the township landscape architect. 3, that the owner developer shall prepare revised plans to comply with the requirements, comments as set forth in the March 9th, 2020 report of Carroll Engineering Corporation, the township traffic engineer, attached to this resolution, to the satisfaction and approval of the said traffic engineer. 4, that the owner developer shall prepare revised plans to comply with the requirements, comments as set forth in the March 17, 2020 report of Carroll Engineering Corporation, the township sanitary sewer engineer, attached to this resolution, to the satisfaction and approval of said sanitary sewer engineer. 5, that the owner developer shall prepare revisions to the plans to comply with the requirements, comments set forth in the May 15, 2020 report of Woodrow and Associates, the township engineer, attached to this resolution, except to the extent that waivers are granted herein to the satisfaction and approval of said township engineer. 6, that the owner developer shall prepare revisions to the plans to comply with the requirements, comments set forth in the May 27, 2020 report of David P. Conroy, zoning officer, attached to this resolution, to the satisfaction and approval of said zoning officer. 7, that the owner developer shall prepare revisions to the plan to comply with the requirements, comments set forth in the May 17th, 2020 report of Suburban Lighting Consultants, the Township Lighting Consultant, to the satisfaction and approval of the said consultant. 8, that the owner developer shall obtain all required permits and approvals from the Sewer Authority, a DEP sewage facility planning module waiver, the water company with jurisdiction over the property, and a highway occupancy permit from Plymouth Township, and a highway occupancy permit from Montgomery County if needed. That the owner developer shall prepare revisions to the plans to comply with the requirements, comments set forth in the June 3rd, 2020 report of the Plymouth Township Planning Agency and the March 20th, 2020 report of the Montgomery County Planning Commission, each attached to this resolution, to the satisfaction and approval of the aforesaid Township Zoning Officer. 10, that the owner developer shall prepare revisions to the plans to list all waivers granted and notes required by this resolution. 11, prior to the issuance of any permits, all outstanding legal, engineering, and administrative fees applicable to this land development must be paid by the owner developer. Excuse me. Number 12, this approval is subject to the fulfillment of all of the foregoing conditions in their entirety, and no permit shall be issued, nor shall any development take place on the property unless and until such conditions are fulfilled. Excuse me. Further resolved that the owner developer shall be, and the recommendation from the staff is that these waivers be granted, shall be granted the following waivers from the terms of the Plymouth Township Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance of 1980, as amended, and from the Plymouth Township Zoning Ordinance of March 1960, Ordinance 342, as amended. Article 5, Section 401.2.A.4, to not provide the location and size of sanitary and storm infrastructure within 20 feet of the site. B, Article 5, Section 401.2.A.5, to not provide the size and ownership of all existing utilities within 200 feet of the site. C, Article 5, Section 401.2.B.2, a partial waiver to not show the location and size of sanitary and storm sewers. D, Article 5, Section 403.K, to not provide a traffic impact study. E, Article 5, Section 501.2.B.2.D, to not locate or permit fences, hedges, trees, shrubbery, wall plantings, or other obstructions within the right-of-way without permission from the township. F, Article 5, Section 501.2.C.5, to not permit any buildings, trees, fences, hedges, shrubbery, or other obstruction in the required site triangle. Article G, Section G, Article 5, Section 502.2.C, to not exceed a maximum grade of 5%. H, Article 5, Section 502.3.H, to not provide curb lines less than a 5-foot radius. I, Article 5, Section 503.2.A, to not provide concrete curbs with an 8-inch reveal. Section J, Article 5, Section 508, to not place concrete monuments along the entire tract, outbound and right-of-ways. K, Article 5, Section 518.4.8.9, to not provide calculations for removal and replacement of existing trees. L, Article 5, Section 518.4.A.20, if needed, to not devote a minimum of 10% of any parking lot facility over 4,000 square feet to landscaping. M, Article 5, Section 518.5.8.1.c, to not permit a maximum of 15 parking spaces in a row without a landscaped island of 10 feet in width, with said island containing not less than 200 square feet of shrubs and ground cover and at least one shade tree. N, Article 5, Section 518.5.H.1.B, to not provide a minimum of 10% of any parking lot facility over 4,000 square feet to be devoted to landscaping in addition to the trees and shrubs required for buffers and parking areas. O, Article 5, Section 518.5.E.1, to not provide one shade tree per 5,000 square feet of gross floor area. P, zoning ordinance section 1707.B, to not provide berming at a minimum of 3 feet above the finished grade when adjacent to any residential district. Duly presented and adopted by Plymouth Township Council at a public meeting held on the 8th day of June 2020, Plymouth Township, by Christopher G. Monero, Chair. It was exciting TV, wasn't it?
We could just, I guess, just really briefly explain the reason why there are so many waivers is that just because of the existing development there and what's now being done, and some of these things just are not, they're not there already, correct? And I guess anybody can answer that.
Yes, that's how it was explained to us.
Mr. Manai?
Yeah, I think that's more of a question for Mr. Manai.
Yeah, for the most part, most of the waivers are due to the existing conditions. And specifically, there's a couple of them. The concrete monuments are asked to be waived because there's iron pins or other identifiable features there that can show the track boundary. The waiver about the curb radius is a matter of, do you want a larger curve radius and lose a parking space, or a smaller curve radius and maintain the parking space? So yes, in conclusion, most of the waivers are because it's an existing track, and showing the information either is not necessary or redundant in some cases.
Great, thank you. So is there a motion to approve this? I guess this is a land development. Is that the official term here?
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Bandish. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Higgins. Comments or questions from council? And comments or questions from the audience? I think we have a couple here.
Yeah.
I guess, Brandon, I'll just call on the individuals. Is that okay?
Yeah, I let Bill in.
Yep. Go ahead, Bill, if you could, again, just a reminder to state your full name and your address, please. There is Bill Losel. How about if we try Robert? Robert's iPad has a hand up.
Yes. What is a 5-foot radius? Oh, Bob Delacourt, White's Road.
Go ahead, Mr. Renai.
Yes, a term radius has to do with the curved portion of the concrete island. So you have two straight pieces that are connected by a curved piece.
So you don't drive right into the curb, it's where it's lower.
No, it's to connect the straight pieces. It has nothing to do with the elevation.
No, I saw it on something else on a driveway I was looking. I didn't understand it then. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's commonly, it comes up quite often in plans.
All right.
We'll go to Rob Lewis.
Was hoping to be safe for last, just saying thank you to Plymouth Township Council and specifically to the staff and consultants working with us on this project. There's a lot to digest in a short period of time. We very much appreciate all their hard work. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We're going to try Bill again. Bill still has a hand up. Bill, are you with us? Do you have a question? Guess we'll say no on that one. We'll move on.
Can you hear me? Wait, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
We got you.
Yeah,
now.
was really struggling with the technology. Apologize. So having not read all of the documents, apologize. Wondering if there are any provisions for noise abatement for any future development that has outdoor seating, particularly as it is adjacent to Little Avenue?
Anybody feel like they can answer that at this point?
Bill, can you expand on outdoor seating? Are you talking about a restaurant area or the
Yes.
office building?
The restaurant area. So what we've been made aware of is that there's going to be a restaurant directly behind where Little Avenue is. And in today's world, there's a small bit of fence, and then there's a row of trees between us and the shopping center. And if there were going to be, outdoor seating there till, whatever time, there'd be certainly an increased amount of noise. I'm just curious if there's any provision around that.
Karen, do you want me to try and take a quick
Just going to ask you to, Rob. Thank you.
Sure. Bill, excuse the informality. My name is Rob Lewis. I'm the attorney that represents the applicant and has been involved in the process. So the area that I think you may believe to be a restaurant is actually an outdoor seating area for office tenants. The rear portion of the building that faces Little Ave is being repurposed as part of this application. So it's going to, the area that used to be bowling alley, used to be a church, used to be a gym, all that kind of use is actually now being converted to office space for the owner of the shopping center, which is Brixmore. So their employees will now occupy that space on a daily basis. And what I think you're seeing on the plans is a terrace that comes off of that office space, and that is for their employees. And so generally speaking, that's a space that would be used during the daytime for lunch for those employees. It is not a open area for the public for restaurant purposes. So obviously during the daytime can still create noise, we understand that, but the area would certainly be subject to all current township noise ordinances. It is important to note that we are planning, and it's depicted on the plans, to plant screen buffering all along that area, and I believe a new fence is also proposed in that area. So while there are some existing trees that will be removed as part of this, there is an entire new screen buffer planting that will get placed in that area as well to shield the residents along Little Ave.
And Rob, it's just one tenant, right? It's all Brixmore?
Correct.
So it's not, yeah.
In just normal office hours, there's no anticipation that this is, this is not some 24-hour call center that will have, late night activity.
I have another question. This is Sandy O'Brien. Bill and I live together on Little Avenue. These trees have been a point of contention for quite some time with the residents here and the shopping center, because of the lights that are on the building that shine directly into our windows. And these trees have been there, and we have argued and rallied around keeping quite some time. Is there any way that those trees can stay as part of the design? Because the lights that are on the back of the building just shine right into our windows all night long.
Rob?
He's muted.
Yeah, he got muted. He's unmuted now.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just I think I muted myself. Yeah, so let me address the trees in one respect first. So the trees that are being addressed are trees that were actually planted in an area that was designated for parking with a prior land development approval by a prior owner. So those trees at some point in time were slated to be removed as part of that parking, which is necessary for the shopping center. I understand that doesn't make you feel great about losing those trees. However, our new plan is subject to the township's current ordinance with respect to lighting. So the lighting on the rear of that building should improve with this land development. Old lighting that may have been installed as God knows when the shopping center was developed was not typically subject to regulations, including all lighting being directed downwards and being what's called shielded, where modern shopping centers, particularly building mounted lighting, is now shielded so that lighting directs downward as opposed to outward. So any new lighting fixtures, replacement lighting fixtures in those locations are now subject to those shielding requirements, which should diminish any projection of light towards the adjoining residences.
Okay, Rob, I appreciate that and I understand. However, should and will are two totally different words here. And I'm wondering from the board if there is any kind of salvation for us, if that should not work.
I'll answer that for them, but Mr. Manai can certainly confirm. We are obligated to provide the shielded lighting. It's part of our land development plan. So any new fixtures that we are providing will be subject to those shielding requirements. So when I say could and should, it should provide some relief. I don't live your life, and I apologize. So I can only sympathize. I can't necessarily empathize with what you see in your home. All I can tell you is that we are subject to greater restrictions now for any new lighting facilities, and they will improve the condition. Exactly how much they will improve for your home, I can't speak to, but they will certainly improve the condition out there.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Lonnie.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, Rob, to that comment that the township has a lighting consultant, Ron Smith, from the Suburban Lighting Group. And Mr. Smith will be out during the installation, and as part of the as-built plan, he will be reviewing that to make sure that the lights have been installed in accordance with the approved plan, and that the candle light doesn't spill over into the adjoining properties.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? We have one, Amy Shalala.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Dan Shalala. I'm actually using my wife's computer because it's just the way it is. I just have I live at 1919 Little Ave. I'm also a neighbor here at the Plymouth Square Shopping Center. And I just want to say thank you very much to the Plymouth Council for helping us, for looking out for us, the neighbors of this now and in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we will do we did a motion already, correct? We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Gannon.
In favor.
Ms. Bandish.
In favor.
Mr. Higgins.
In favor.
Ms. Bramblett.
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Next item is the Proving Grounds, Field 6 to 8, an extension request, and that's Mr. Gannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This communication is from Paul Tornetta in reference to the aforementioned Proving Grounds development application. He would like an extension until July 31st, 2020. I make a motion that we approve this.
Okay, motion from Mr. Gannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Higgins. Comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Bramblett.
In favor.
Mr. Gannon.
In favor.
Mr. Higgins.
In favor.
Ms. Bandish.
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Moving down to conditionally approved projects that are not yet recorded, we have 2 extension requests, and they will both go to Mr. Gannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This communication is from Nicholas Couchet Jr. on behalf of Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless, and the address is 700 Belvoir Road, and they were asking for an extension until August 15th, 2020, and I move we approve this.
A motion for Mr. Gannon to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Bandish. Comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Bramblett.
In favor.
Mr. Gannon.
In favor?
Ms. Bandish,
In favor?
Mr. Higgins,
In favor.
and the chair votes in favor. And projects currently under construction, we have an escrow release for Arbor Square. And I'm sorry, did I forget? I forgot one, didn't I?
Missed one.
I caught myself though before I completely forgot it. Back to you, Mr. Gannon, for Lilvin Enterprise LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This communication is from Randy Wolf on behalf of Lilvin Enterprises LLC. And the address is 800 to 820 Brook Road. And they're asking for a time extension until August 31st, 2020. And I move we approve this.
Okay, motion to approve for Mr. Gannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from, I think that was Ms. Bandish. Comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
Mr. Gannon?
In favor?
Ms. Bramblett?
In favor.
Ms. Bandish?
In favor?
And the chair votes in favor. Now, projects under construction, escrow release for Arbor Square. Mr. Higgins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a letter from Lonnie Manai, reference Arbor Square. At this time, based on field observations of work completed to date, we find that sufficient work has been completed to release the amount of $1,291,283.80. By releasing this amount, the total account balance for the project will be reduced to $83,163.30. I make a motion to approve this escrow release.
A motion from Mr. Higgins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Bramblett. Comments or questions from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Okay, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Gannon?
In favor?
Ms. Bandish?
In favor?
Ms. Bramblett?
In favor.
Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. Okay. Going down to code enforcement. Vacant buildings ordinance. Mr. Clark.
Brandon?
He's muted.
Yeah, let me get him. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Monero, and thank you, Brandon.
Of course.
This is an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 5, Buildings and Building Regulation, to add Article 5, Registration of Vacant Buildings. The Council of Plymouth Township, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania does hereby enact and ordain that the Code of Ordinance of the Township of Plymouth, Pennsylvania is hereby amending Chapter 5, Buildings and Building Regulation, to add Article 5, Registration of Vacant Buildings as stated below. Section 5.81 is the purpose of the ordinance, and the purpose of the ordinance requiring registration of all vacant buildings is to assist the township, and in particular the Code Enforcement Department, in protecting the public health, safety, and welfare by monitoring the number of vacant buildings in the township, to assess the effects of the condition of those buildings on nearby businesses and on the neighborhoods in which they are located, particularly in light of fire safety hazards, and to promote substantial efforts to rehabilitate, rent, or sell such vacant buildings. Section 5.82 is the definition section. Section 5-83, I should say, is the applicability section. Section 5-84 deals with registration, and the owner of any building that has been vacant for more than 60 consecutive days shall file a registration statement with the Plymouth Township Code Enforcement Department. The registration statement shall include the street address and tax parcel number of each such vacant building, the names and addresses of all owners, working telephone numbers, and any other information deemed necessary by the Code Enforcement Department. Registration in Section B is required for all vacant buildings, whether vacant and secure, vacant and open, or vacant and boarded, and shall be required whenever any building has remained vacant for 60 consecutive days or more. Section 5.85 is the registration fee. 5.86 deals with the duty to amend the registration statement if any of the pertinent information changes. 5.87 is the violations and penalties, and 5.88 and 5.89 889 are boilerplate legalese. This has been properly advertised, and this would be ordained and enacted by the Council of Plymouth Township, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, this 8th day of June, 2020. Council of Plymouth Township by Christopher G. Monero, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. Is there a motion to approve this vacant buildings ordinance?
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Bramblett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Higgins. Comments or questions from council? And any comments or questions from the audience? Looks like we have one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Bob Delacour, White's Road. Is this only for commercial space, or is this for houses, or what?
All vacant buildings.
Correct. It's for all vacant buildings.
It's for houses.
Yes.
Houses, any building within the township.
So if somebody goes to Florida for 6 months, they have to register?
Yes.
That's insane. It's here for 3 months. It's crazy.
Well, I think that just to reiterate, one of the key points is for public safety, and if there's a fire call or if there's something near there, that I think it's important for the emergency services to know that there may be a vacant building either adjacent to a property or even if they get a call for that specific property.
All right. Is there a setting for how many feet apart before it damages somebody else? Like if I'm 45 feet away from the next building, it's not going to damage anybody most likely. And it's not going to matter if I'm here for a month or if I'm missing for 3 months in Florida. I can see on commercial space where God knows what kind of meth labs they have, but I don't understand for someone's residence.
Well, part of this is not just for the code enforcement department, but it's also for this information that can be shared with the police. It can be shared with the firefighters, that if they know that a building is vacant and if there's an issue with that building, that's important information that the township would need.
Why would it matter if it's vacant for 60 days or for 10 days? I don't get the difference.
Well, we had to set a time period, and 60 days after consultation with code enforcement staff and other members of township staff, and looking at similar ordinances from municipalities around southeastern Pennsylvania, 60 days seemed to be an appropriate and reasonable number.
I can understand if I have a twin, I have a duplex, a townhouse, but a single family home that doesn't touch anybody, that makes no sense. And you're going to charge a fee for being out of the house for 60 days? There was something about a fee you read off?
Yeah, there's going to be a fee charge for if you're going to be vacant for more than 60 days.
Wow. And there's probably quite a few people that go to the shore for the summer. They're not there for 60 days. I mean, there has to be some kind of say, did somebody go in the house and check on it once a month? And then you have to say, oh, that was acceptable. But do I have to go and prove to somebody they went in my house, check my mail or something? Most people forward the mail though, and they're not there.
The ordinance is intended for those properties that are completely vacant and unattended for 60 days or more. If you have a caretaker, that property is not at that point in time vacant or unattended.
Okay, do you consider it vacant if my furniture's in the house?
Yes.
What, sorry, repeat, please.
Yes.
Well, that sounds crazy. Really, you think about it. I mean, people go away for a month at a time, and then 2 months at a time, easily. I don't think it's proper. I really don't. I just think it's really invading on people's privacy. And I can see if the house is abandoned and everything, if they're not paying their bills, if they're letting the lawn grow, I'd understand that. But I don't understand the rationale the council would go for this for a person's single residence that is following the zoning, how many feet apart from another house they are. And I would think the zoning for going so far from the house is if the house catches on fire, they don't affect the other house, correct? Anybody?
I mean, I think every situation could be different. I think this is designed to apply for that situation in general. I think in your original question about the fees, this ordinance does not set the fee. That would, I assume, Mr. Clark, be the next step, and that would be an additional item that we would have to decide on. And that could possibly be something, obviously, that, for residential homes and people that are just simply traveling, that there's certainly things that we can do to make that something that will not be a burden on residents.
Well, I
The fee
think
will
it
be-
should. I don't have to tell
Yeah.
someone not in my house and then find out they told someone the house is vacant and I find out somebody's living in my house for 2 months if I go to Florida. You know what I'm saying? You don't know who gets the information. You don't know who it shows up on public records. Hey, this house vacant every year. Let's go live there for a few months. You know, I find that a little crazy. I really do. I mean, if I only want to go for 45 days, hey, I don't have to report it. But if I go for 61 days, I got to report it. And now somebody's going to go and say, hey, look at this. Every year this guy goes away. I just find it wrong. If it's a commercial property and God knows what goes on, that's one thing. Someone's personal residence, I think you're just getting into, into bad waters, really, to be honest. And I don't care what other municipalities do. They all want to go
And-
find out what their neighbors are doing.
And
That's
the
control.
example, sir, you just used is one of the prime reasons for this ordinance. So let's say you do register that you're not there for 60 or 90 days, and our police department or our code department sees a lot of activity in the house. Like you're saying, somebody decides to go and live in your house during that 60 or 90 days that you're away. Well, then our code enforcement department and our police department will know that something's up because you've registered as not being in the property for 90 days.
No,
So
then my
again,
alarm
it's where the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Plymouth Township, and that's what the board is in charge of protecting.
I guarantee you, my neighbors will be all over if strange cars pull up, they start partying in my property. I guarantee it. My alarm company would definitely notify everybody if somebody went in my house. I just find it's intruding on people's personal property, and I find it wrong. If I had a duplex, great. If I have a townhouse, great. They have every right to know that there's a vacant house and it could be bad news for them. I think 60 days is ridiculous, especially for a single home. I think it should be exempt on residential A, residential AA, and anybody else is far enough away on B, I guess, even.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Delacourt, for your thoughts. Is there any other comments or questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Gannon?
In favor?
Mr. Higgins?
In favor.
Ms. Bandish?
In favor.
Ms. Bramblett?
In favor.
The chair votes in favor. Moving on to next items under zoning. So we are zoning hearings, and Ms. Bramblett.
All right, the zoning hearing board of Plymouth Township, hearing on June 22nd, 2020 will be held at 7 p.m. virtually via Zoom. Login details will be available at the Plymouth Township website, plymouthtownship.org, and the Township's Facebook account prior to the hearing. The following zoning applications will be heard. Kelman and Magliari Realty on an application for an interpretation or in the alternative of variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended. The interpretation or in the alternative of variance requested as follows: to allow an increase of 68% of a non-conforming building where a maximum of 25% is allowed. The property is located at 2070 Butler Pike in a commercial zoning district. Dennis Powell and Elizabeth Powell on an application for variances or in the alternative interpretations from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended. Variances or in the alternative interpretations requested are as follows: to allow outbuildings to not include a transition or vegetation area around the two sides of the proposed development area. The property is located at 2622 Butler Pike in a AA residential zoning district. Next is Fields Family LLC on an application for variances from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended. The variances requested are as follows: to allow a concrete pad 3 feet from the property line where a minimum of 4 feet is required. To allow a proposed shed to be placed less than the required 10 feet from the rearmost portion of the dwelling. The property is located at 624 Erlin Road in a B residential zoning district. persons with a disability who wish to participate in the public hearing and require an auxiliary aid, service, or other accommodation to participate in the hearing should contact the Plymouth Township at 610-233-0554.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bramblett. Moving down to miscellaneous and old business, we have our citizen board vacancy announcements. All residents wishing to serve on citizens boards are asked to submit their resume or a letter stating their interest to the township manager, 700 Belvoir Road, Plymouth Meeting, PA, 19462, or via email at kweiss@plymouthtownship.org. And there are currently the following citizen board positions open. We have 2 positions open on the Property Maintenance Code Appeals Board, and we have 1 position open on the Historical Architectural Review Board. And again, any interest in either of those 2 boards, you can contact Karen Weiss, kweiss@plymouthtownship.org, or send a letter to 700 Belvoir Road, Plymouth Meeting, PA, to the attention of the township manager. Okay. Moving down to audience participation. And again, I do, just as a reminder, want to say that if you could please state your full name as well as your address if you have any public comment at this time. And we will open the floor, and I think Marlene Chaikin has her hand up first.
Hi, Marlene Chaikin, Plymouth Hill Condominium, 666 West Germantown Pike. I understand there's a proposal, or there's rumor about a development of a 391 unit apartment building in Plymouth Meeting Mall. I'd like a little bit of information on that, as to whether it's been approved and what studies have been done for it.
Sure. So last week, both Crete, who owns the mall, and Hanover Properties presented at our workshop meeting. Essentially, Hanover presented their plans for the possible development of, as you said, I think 190 apartment units on the property of the mall. So at this point, they've presented. Crete has presented sort of their explanation of why they would like to sell a portion of the property to Hanover, and Hanover has presented to us sort of their typical product and what they envision on that mall property. At this point, council has not made a decision. It would require us to approve a text amendment change to our zoning code in order to allow that. So that's what we would have to do next. And at this point, we have not made a decision as to whether or not we are interested in doing that for this project.
Okay, I know that it would generate a lot of revenue for Plymouth, but my concern living here a block away from it is traffic. The traffic right now during rush hours is completely gridlocked. I would think and hope that you guys would do a traffic study or make them do a traffic study prior to approval of anything. Rush hour morning and evening, especially morning, is gridlock getting to the Blue Route and the Turnpike. I just think it's not a great idea for this area. The roads just will not accommodate. So can you please take that into consideration with this?
Yes, thank you. And just in terms of the traffic study, so they will do, the developer is required and has done a preliminary traffic study. We then have our own traffic engineer who will then, look at those and determine whether or not, that's verifiable or any changes need to be made. But any development such as that would have a traffic study done with it. But we do appreciate and definitely will take your thoughts into consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I think Ms. Trembath is next.
Hi, sorry, just trying to get my video on. Linda Trembath, 9 Camelot Drive. And I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Marlene had said. I know I reached out to council and expressed great concern with the traffic and congestion in this area. Just getting off of, I also travel Turnpike area on and off, just getting out of our neighborhood at Plymouth Hills is difficult some mornings. the new development at the mall is wonderful. However, just even getting over to the mall now with the new development, there's been increased traffic at that entrance. And I guess my main question would be, you know, I realize that the mall is struggling, as many malls are, but how would this extra, you know, population and building really help the mall when we would still have numerous buildings inside or stores inside that would be vacant? I'm not really seeing how this would be a good thing for Plymouth, and how that could help, if you could kind of answer in that way, or maybe I'm ahead of ourselves. I'm just wondering what the reasoning would be behind it.
We did discuss that a little bit last week, and you know, we don't, I think as a council, we don't have a clear answer to that. The hope is that making the mall property mixed use will draw more people into the existing commercial businesses that are already there. Crete has said that they have plans for changes inside the mall and additional stores that are going to be coming in around the mall. But in terms of the, you know, a grand vision, I think it's sort of a trend right now that some of these malls are adding residential development to their properties and becoming mixed use. And I think in general, you know, you have the opportunity to create kind of a town center, a mixed use center. But the question, I think the question that a lot of us have for council is, you know, how much, how much residential is too much for mixed use. But I guess in answer to your question, the intent there is the draw of more people at the mall property to then go and visit and utilize the businesses at the mall.
Okay, because at my concern as well too, with all the development of the apartments on Plymouth Road, and now I mean, maybe there is a need, I don't know. I feel that there's more of concern with congestion and overcrowding in schools that really is a big issue with our small township. It's kind of taking away from what Plymouth really is. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I think we have Sarah's iPhone. Who's next?
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Scarola, and I live at 27 Jody Drive in Plymouth Meeting. I wanted to just follow up on what the previous two commenters mentioned about the potential apartment development. And also just add that while traffic always seems to be the hot button issue that comes to the forefront of the discussion, I think Linda may have mentioned it briefly, but my concern would be even more on a larger scale as far as all of the resources for our township. And that includes things like schools, public works, all of the things that are going on in our township that we have to support our current population, maybe, that might need to be even further developed, and does the increased revenue offset the taxpayers' burden as far as paying for all of those improvements to support a much larger population. So I wanted to share that concern for your consideration as well, and also understand really when we're looking at changing the zoning to a mixed use, you know, why is the zoning there in the first place to be only for commerce? And if there are specific reasons that we have that zoning to begin with, why would we continuously evaluate changing the zoning to accommodate more and more development of residential properties? So that's it.
Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Mr. Gannon, go ahead.
I just want to comment on it. Thank you for your comments also, Sarah. In my mind, with the malls, I guess with the internet out there and the ability to shop online, malls have really taken a big hit, not just through this recession, but just in general trends, I think, in the past 5 to 10 years. And it seems, you know, we have a great partner in Priet who owns the mall on that property, and I would hate to see that not continue. So partly what I think we have to balance is what is best for some of our partners in the community as well as the townspeople. And by right, I believe they can do an office building there if they wanted to. I particularly like this project, not in the amount of units that they have, me personally, but just for the reason I think it's going to bring some new life into the mall and disposable income and people shopping and eating. Those are the reasons why I particularly like this project versus another commercial or retail there. People could be part of the community at that point. And balancing a good neighbor and good businesses, taxes, and what's proper for that area. It does seem like trends for malls are going this direction, and I think it's going to be a benefit for the township as long as the amount of units, the design, the heights, placement, all those things are proper. And traffic is a huge issue for me also. I've been in the township 40 years, and I totally understand rush hour anywhere around that area. And one of the questions I brought up last week was going east out of the mall on Germantown Pike. There's only one entry or one exit. So they haven't come up with a solution yet. So I'm not convinced I will like anything until they address a lot of those issues. But that's my comments for you.
Thank you.
Any other? We have Robert again, Mr. Delacourt.
Good. Well said.
Okay, I'll start.
Hello?
Got you. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, two comments. Have you, I mean, when you do this, they built the apartments there right across from the Plymouth into East Norton there. I think, I forget the name of it, I apologize. I don't think they're full yet. Is there going to be a market for these? Not that it's our problems, market or not, but it's going to be a lot more traffic. Are you going to wait for them to see how much more traffic's on this street or what?
Well, I mean, like as we said, there is a traffic study, but, you know, in answer to your question or your point, actually, you know, that is something that the council is going to consider, not just the fact that they want to build about 400 apartments there, but the apartments in East Norton that they just built by ShopRite, there's 260 units there. That kind of gives you a sense of what 260 looks like. The Park Apartments on Plymouth Road have 398 units. So that gives you a good idea of what 400 units looks like. And in Whitpain, the ones that they're building on Union Meeting Road, there are 270 units that are going to be in there. So roughly the same size as the ones in East Norton. You know, I think for us personally as a council, when we think about the traffic impact of one project, it's important for us to think regionally or at least multi-municipally and see not just what our project would include in terms of traffic, but what these other ones have already added to the traffic in very recent years. So, you know, while they will do a traffic study, while our traffic engineer will obviously be a part of that, I think absolutely 100% like the full scope of all this is really important. I mean, all those units, all those apartments that have been built and how they've all contributed to the increased traffic.
The second part was, have you been up to the King of Prussia, Newtown, whatever they call that, Town Square? I forget what they call it. But the people up there are like moving out. The residents, they just can't get in their cars and go to the store. It's just coming to a dead stop. And at Christmas, I wouldn't even go near the mall. Thank God for Amazon, right? But there's no place to drive anymore up there. It just dies. And they've really spent a fortune on the highway. Getting them, once they're on the highway is great, but otherwise, you're going to end up with that down here with all the projects. I'd wait until they open. I mean, they wish to do it too. You know, it's one thing that you'd be the only game in town. It's another thing to be one of 5 and find out there was only a market for 3 of them. You know what I'm saying? But that's up to them too, I guess. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Anything from any members of council?
Yes, Chris?
Mr. Higgins, go ahead.
Yes, I represent Ward 3, which is 777, 666, all the houses, the development across from the mall. I believe that we need to make sure that this mall survives, but 400 apartments is not the answer, and I'm not going to be in favor of this proposal. It's way too many apartments. They do traffic studies, and they came up with a number that I have a hard time understanding. You know, I think it's more than traffic going in and out of the mall. It's once you get out of the mall, what happens, and once you are on Germantown Pike trying to get into the mall. So although we haven't discussed it as a group yet, I just want to go on record as not in favor of this proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. Anything else from members of council? Okay, and again, this is information that basically we got a week ago, so we do need to obviously take all your thoughts into consideration and all of your concerns, because it is a big decision. I think that we have in front of us, we know that malls are not malls anymore. I mean, it's just they don't work as they traditionally did. We have a very important piece of property that is at the crossroads of pretty much the biggest intersection in southeastern Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of opportunities to do things there, but we need to make sure that we allow what's right. We can make a big decision that turns out to be a big mistake, or we can make a big decision that turns out to be really good for the entire township. So these are all really important points that we have to consider. I think Ms. Scarola has her hand up again.
Yes, I just wanted to add one more thing that I neglected to say in my previous comment, and that is that I would love to see the development that our township approves be something that brings significant jobs to this area, particularly at this time. I don't see a residential development bringing that, and I think with so many people being out of work at this time, if there is something that could bring jobs to our area, I think that's also an important point for consideration. So whether it's a call center or something like that, I think that would be a great win for us. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions? Okay. Hopefully this was our last Zoom meeting. Hopefully, cross our fingers. Who knows if that's going to happen or not? But thank everybody for attending, for your participation. And if there's nothing else, we will adjourn.